Max Pog builds a startup studio.
Hi, Tom. Nice to meet you here on my podcast.
Hi, Max.
I was exploring opportunities to create educational courses in the game industry and met your profile on LinkedIn. I was very surprised. Wow, this guy have sold games for $3 billion. He definitely knows his way around the game industry. So, tell me about you and your projects. What does your company do in simple words?
Yeah, well, thank you, Max. I appreciate it. I'm Tom Dusenberry. I've been in the game industry my entire career, and there was really three parts to my career. The first part was with Parker Brother Games, so I worked with wonderful products such as Monopoly and Trivial Pursuit and Boggle and Sorry and Risk. But we also got into the electronic business, and so I was very active with Atari games such as Star Wars and Frogger and Pac-Man and all those types of games. And then the second part of my career, Parker Brothers was purchased by Hasbro, so I became part of the Hasbro family of companies. And within Hasbro, I really had two primary responsibilities. The first was that I became the inventor relations guy for Hasbro games, and I went out throughout the entire world and I found innovation and new inventors to bring to the marketplace. And that happened for me for about a 5 year period of time. And during that period of time, I really got deeply involved with interactive entertainment. So I went forward to the Hasbro board with the idea that we should transition from classic games into more interactive games, and that created Hasbro Interactive. And so I'm the founder and then the CEO of Hasbro Interactive, which brought great games to the marketplace, such as Roller Coaster Tycoon, Star Wars, and other classic games as well. And so that was a very successful period of time. And I also made some major acquisitions for Hasbro, including buying Atari. And also, I acquired Wizards of the Coast, which was Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. And so in 2001, Hasbro decided that it was time for them to go back to basics or to remain as a toy company, and they didn't want to go into interactive entertainment. So they asked me to sell my business, which I successfully did to a French company called Infogram. That allowed me to go to the third phase of my career, and that is to become an entrepreneur and run my own company called Dusenberry Entertainment. Within Dusenberry Entertainment, I really focus on mobile games. But in addition to that, I'm on the board of several different game companies. And I have been very involved in taking intellectual property such as the NASCAR brand and working with the sport itself to create video games and mobile games. And today, what I'm doing is I'm primarily focused in Dusenberry Entertainment, and I'm focused in all things mobile. But in addition to that, I license board games, and I'm also involved in mixed reality. So it seems like every part of the game industry I touch in one way or another.
So am I right that you connect different types of industry players, for example, producers of games who want to make their game being popular on the market? You sell some license for the companies who want uh, to sell it to their customers or to distribute it to players, and probably you help someone to attract investments, or it was in previous uh, two steps in your career.
Yeah. So Max, what I've learned is that in my career is that to make a successful game, it comes down to one thing, and that is it has to be fun. So for me, it's all about the fun. And I love to put my hands all over products. So I love to invent, I love to design, I love to develop, and I love to be involved in that process because I think that the more directly involved I am in that process from a game point of view, the more focus will be on the fun element. So, but within that, you can't just have fun and you can't make a successful product. So, I've been trained and I understand all the different aspects of being able to deliver a successful game. So, to me, it really comes to have a successful game. It comes down to two key things. One is you have to have a fun game, and then two is you have to have that game find an audience. And that becomes critical as well. And that audience needs to be able to sustain itself and to be able to grow. So that's where you start to talk about partnerships. And partnerships can really come in multiple different ways. But one way is to work with a big intellectual property company like a games company and take this idea that we have and then get them to be able to publish it. But in addition to that, there's another route, and that is to go out and work with the investor community, have investors invest in your game, and to be able to allow it to mature and grow to the point that it's a very meaningful game. And then you sell that to a bigger game company so that they can globalize it and really grow it to its full potential.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about games, I understand that there are some traditional forms of games, maybe board games, and there are some digital and maybe toys. So how maybe I suppose that you started with board games and then shifted to different types and digital games. When, why, and how was this shift for you?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and that is that for me, I love all games, and so I'm founded from a point of view that the only thing that we really had when we started in the industry was board games and card games. So I really understand that business well, and I respect it, and I love it, and I continue to play board games. But unfortunately, if you look at that, that's less than 5% of the entire games market now. So, from a games point of view, beyond the board games, then there's opportunities for new platforms and new genres to be able to go into. So I've had the good fortune of being able to be on every major hardware platform, from Atari to Nintendo to Sega to Sony to Microsoft, and everybody in between. But equally important is that within the game industry, there's different game genres. So there's children's games and there's family games, but there's also shooter games and strategy games, and now there's cloud-based games, and all those games are all really important too. And so for me, when I look at the game industry, I look at it from a macro point of view and all those different elements. And then what I do is target specifically what I'm trying to create and invent, and then who's the best audience to go with from a point of view of what the platform is and the genre that you're going for.
Mm-hmm. You have sold 3 billion worth of board and digital games. Tell me about your main projects that created this revenue and your personal or unique role for this success.
Sure. So the biggest successful games were like Star Wars, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Monopoly has sold for years and continues to sell well. But we also had a lot of success with like the Disney properties. I did Civilization 2, which was a big Sid Meier product that was quite successful. When I bought Microprose and Spectrum Holobyte, I was able to get Falcon 4.0, which was the leading flight simulation game at the time. So I've got a lot of experience in a lot of the different genres, and continue to work in them. And for me, when you say what did I do, there was many different things and many different projects. I started on the loading dock of Parker Brother Games, so I started at the absolute bottom of the game business. But for the last 30 years, I've been a CEO. So I, look at it from a point of view of what are the financial impact, my human resource impact, what kind of market am I going after? All those things are important, and I've got experience and skills in each of those different areas because of the history that I have in the game industry.
Mm-hmm. If to remember some failures, so can you mention some bad projects or when it was not so good as supposed to be?
Yeah, I think that also is important, and that is the game industry really is one failure after another, and that is that it's really hard to find a successful game from a point of view of what the fun is, and then be able to have an audience that sustains itself. So most of the games that I brought to the marketplace didn't meet what the expectation was. And, like if I look at it from a CEO point of view, I would commit to my company and to my team that we would do probably 15 to 20 new games each year. Max, I was hoping and praying that one, maybe two of those was a hit. And I was hoping and praying that maybe two or three others would be able to make money for me. The rest of them I knew, although we tried as hard as we possibly could, wouldn't be able to be fun or find an audience, and we would ultimately not make money at it. So the game business is not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. You have to have some tenacity, and you've got to be able to have some tough skin because you're going to get knocked around a lot from a point of view of making mistakes and having failures. But what you have to do is you have to say that all it is a process, and life is a process. And when you learn from that mistake, you then apply the enhancement to the next game, and it'll become better. And ultimately, you will find fun, and you will find an audience that will appreciate your game.
So when we think about Star Wars, Monopoly, or Civilization, we think that, oh, it is so popular, big audience games, but probably for every big project there are tens or hundreds of small or unsuccessful. And am I right that even big company big companies, they make a lot of attempts to find what is the player will have fun from?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you've got to continue to try, and it's kind of like from a bottoms up and a top down point of view. So from a bottom up point of view, it's like, hey, I have a new idea. I think this will be a really cool game, and look at this new art design, and look at the leveling I can do, and look at the monetization I can put into the game, right? So it's like, wow, that's really cool. But somebody has to be looking at it from the top down and saying, what market are we going after? What is the audience? What's the challenges we have? Who are the competitors? Are we going to be able to break, the popular games away, the players from those games away to come to my game? So you have to look at it, from both of those points of view. And a lot of times, you might have a great game and everything is working great, but you didn't pick the right genre or the right game segment to go into, and you can't find an audience and you fail. So you've got to be really careful about that.
And how usually this test is conducted to understand that it will go and be a hit, or it is just something not interesting and we don't have to promote it more?
Well, like in the mobile game industry, what's important is for me is to do like a looks like, works like prototype that allows you to be able to express to other people what your design ideas are, what your art style is, and what you're trying to bring to the marketplace. And that should be a fairly low barrier to entry. Once that's accepted, then what you want to do is you want to develop the game to the point that you can get it into a market for research. So, like for me, I like Canada to go to because it's really not in the main United States from a market point of view. And what I can do with Canada is it's close enough to the main market that I can read that and understand what works and what doesn't work. And most importantly for me at the very beginning stage, I'm looking for loops and gameplay challenges that don't work, meaning I can't break through or, players have issues, and we fix that. And to me, Max, then it's a step and repeat until you think you're to the point that you're saying, I've got the right mix of game design and I've got an audience that really seems to be interested in this. Let's launch this product for mass market purposes.
Hmm. What is average success rate of such attempts?
When you define success, that's a great question. What I would say is this: the chances of a hit are not very high. The chances of using the formula that I just talked about will probably make you not lose money. So you will make money on that. But it may, and then the question is it can you feed it? Can you fuel it? Does it have the right thing to be able to really take off and become a hit?
Hmm. So maybe it is similar to startups where maybe one of 10,000 startups are getting the $1 billion valuation. And I know that you also fundraised several times, maybe even 10 times, I don't know. And totally it is amount about $40 million. Could you please tell more about it? How was the process? What was the goal of investment? And for which games this was attracted?
Sure. So in the investing world, I think I've raised about $80 million in my career. So, it's a pretty big number. And it comes down to, really different segments, just like we talked about, from the game point of view. And that is that from an investor point of view, if you're at the very beginning of something, you may need friends and family or an angel investor. And that's a certain style of investor. They generally are very emotionally involved with you, and they don't fully understand what the implications are, but they're enthusiastic to try to help you. And so they're very important because they can launch, get a product to the point that it can be something that's viable. And then, from that, what you do is you've got different levels of investors. So you've got like venture capital, you've got equity capital, and then you've got public money that you look at. And so for me, when I'm building a business, a mobile game, normally at that, I can handle the first stage myself. But the second stage, if I'm looking for an investor, I'm generally looking for somebody that is strategic as well as money. And that means that they can bring something to me in addition to just the money that they bring. And so, because of the fact that I'm in the game industry, I know a lot of game experts. I know a lot of game investors that also are really smart businessmen, know strategy, have relationships and contacts that are important to me. And that's really important. And that's the next layer, right? And so, there you're still connected from a point of view that there's probably some relationship that you're dealing with. And then, if the company really starts to take off and there's upside potential, you're going to get professional investors that are going to want to come in. And at that point, they're going to want, a bigger stake, and they're going to want a board seat. And what their goal is to help you grow the business. Now, growing the business may be for market purposes, but it also may be growing the business so you can have it acquired. So there, you might want to pick a specific venture company that is really good at selling companies into Microsoft, as an example. That would be a great advantage because they're going to really focus on you and your business to help you get the company shaped up and ready so that an acquisition opportunity could happen. Equally important is there's investors that really love the public market. And what they would say is stay away from Microsoft, but let's grow this ourselves and continue to grow it. And then let's turn this into a public company at some point and get the full potential of what the business could be. So those are all the different elements that you have to deal with from a venture point of view. And then when it comes down to terms, what kind of share do you have? There again, it goes back into those different categories. And at the bottom, usually the angels get a fairly bigger percentage, and as it goes higher, they get a smaller percentage because you're further along with your business and you have established more value for yourself, and then they're just willing to value add to that.
So am I right that these are quite different types of investors, not usual investors that are looking for startups, but these are startups or these are investors, angel investors and funds which are specifically focused on gaming industry? Because I think there are differences, and when an angel investor is thinking about investing in new company, he expects that it will grow. It is based on new technology usually. And of course, games also could be scalable very, very much, and investors can get 1,000 times more money than they were invested. But I think that there is some specific sphere of investors, not just usual investors. Am I right?
That's correct. There's investors that are specialists in each of those different areas, and a lot of times, Max, what happens is a investor will hire me as a consultant to come in, and what I'll do is the proper due diligence, and then say, based upon what I know your interests are, and based upon what this company is, this is what I recommend. And it would either be I recommend that you consider an investment, or to me, I would stay as far away from it as you possibly can, and these are the reasons why.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about your easiest and hardest fundraising cases?
Yeah, the when I first left Hasbro Interactive, I had become friends with the gentleman named Randy Rissman, and Randy had just sold Tiger Electronics, which was the big sports handheld product, and he had Furby to Hasbro, and he made like $300 million plus for that. And so he and I became friends, and I had left Hasbro, and he called me up and he said, "What are you planning to do, Tom?" And I said, "Well, Randy, I think I'm going to go into the mobile game business." And he said, "You want a partner?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You run the business and I'll take care of you on the finance end." And the next day I got a check for $1 million in the, now that is called easy money to be able to raise. interestingly enough, Randy and I are still best friends today, and he continues to be my mentor. So that was turned out to be a
Mm-hmm.
very good and very positive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the hardest thing that I ever did was that I went and raised money on Wall Street, and I went to a guy that was red hot. He had just raised he had just made $2.8 billion, and so he decided to start his own investment company, and I was one of the first companies that he invested in. The guy, in a 3 year period of time, lost $2.8 billion and was crazy and didn't understand anything about principles of business, didn't understand anything about operating a business. And unfortunately, the money that we got, it turned into a nightmare from a point of view of trying to deal with him and all the issues that he brought along with it. So you've got to be careful on who you go and raise money from, because if you get the wrong guy, it can be really challenging for you and your business.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that none of these investments were unsuccessful in terms that investors they got their money back and earn more. So how was it possible that that you always had successes with investments?
Yeah, I don't. I think that the point is that wouldn't say I have successes, but I don't have failures. And what I mean by that is that to me, if you and I commit to something, there must be a value in something that we did. And so I'm pretty proud of the fact that through all the years I've worked, I've never been part of a bankruptcy. So we haven't had to do that with our company. Now we've been really close sometimes, and I've had to do some unique deals and things like that to get everybody into a better position. But that's kind of the when you think about the entrepreneur, you think about him always being able to build and grow things. A lot of times what an entrepreneur has to do is figure out how to get out of a mess, and that is to get put yourself in the best position for long-term success. So when things aren't going well, your investors don't like you, your team doesn't like you don't like yourself, but you've got to be professional enough, and you've got to have enough fortitude to be able to say, let me get through this and take the high road on everything I possibly can to get set up for whatever the next journey will be.
Mm-hmm. So even if some project is not working, you you give shares to investors in your next projects. Am I right?
Yes, yes. I have relationships, and if things don't work out, it's not because we've goofed up. It's the team all knows what it is, and you try to wrap it up as well as you possibly can. And then you get down to what are your options? Is there a roll up? Is there an asset sell? Is there a piece of IP that you can sell? Is there some technology that you can move forward? There's got to be something there that you can find that you can bring into some type of new situation.
In your email, you mentioned that you're writing a book about people who impacted your life. What is your main advice when finding partners and colleagues to work with?
I think the most important thing is to do some due diligence so that you know exactly where the person came from and what their goals and objectives are, because you need to be aligned with them. And a lot of times that happens from a point of view. If I've worked with somebody for 30 years, I generally know them, I know their wife, I know their kids, and I know kind of who they are from a point of view of what their values are, what their morality is. That's very important to me. When you go to somebody like on Wall Street and you start to deal with them, like I explained this other guy, on the one hand, I was wowed by the wealth that this guy created. On the other hand, I didn't do enough due diligence to understand that there were a lot of challenges behind what happened there. And, and to me, so I kind of fault myself from a point of view that I was too wowed by the amazing amount of wealth that this guy delivered versus the overall who was the human being that I was dealing with, and was he somebody that would stand with me in times of difficulty.
And so now I understand that you have company, you are a solopreneur, you don't have partners. Do you think it's easier to be one, or it's easier to make business with partners? And how do you think about having co-founders?
because of, I've been on the corporate side, I know the value of resources. I mean, it's just unbelievable what you can do when you never have to ask, where's the money coming from? And you can see greatness because of that. On the other hand, as an entrepreneur, everything starts with where's the money going to come from, and so that's a lot different from a point of view of how you look at things. And so when it comes down to it, I have probably 50 or 60 people that work for me. They're freelance people. So I work with them when I need them, and they work with me when they need me. But from an overhead point of view, I keep my overhead at absolutely zero, as it relates to support and that type of stuff, just because of the way I manage my projects, and that works best for me.
Yes, now it's easier to work with freelancers, with people who are remote, and maybe coronavirus affected this. So, but as I understood, you work with freelancers already several years. It is not by COVID uh, was done.
Yeah, I always love to meet new people. So, and I'm always looking for new innovations. So, that's something that's always really important to me. And with that said, though, because of the fact that I've been in the game industry a long time, I kind of know a lot of people and know who the best people are. And so, depending on what the project is, a lot of times I'm able to attract them to work with me on that project. And so it's beneficial for them and beneficial for me because we've got a long term type of relationship. We understand each other, and I can lean on them for the creative or whatever the input is that I'm really looking for, and I know that they'll give me an honest feedback rather than just giving me the answer that I'm looking
Hmm. How has the gaming industry changed for the last 20 years, and how you changed your strategy? Maybe your focus changed from one specific games to another. What has changed?
Yeah, well, first of all, one thing never changes, and that is that games are all about fun. And so, no matter what the format is, no matter what the genre is, if it's not fun, it just isn't going to work. In the last 20 years, the biggest change by far has been mobile. And that is that, it made the entire world a game playing community. Because you can be in any part of the world, and if you have a mobile device, you have an opportunity to be able to play a game. So that alone has just been, a profound impact on what the business has been. But then I think the other thing is interactivity, and that is that up until 20 years ago, everybody used to complain about the fact that Nintendo was single play, right? You just sit in
Hmm.
front of the TV and play it. Well, today the immersive play is so immense; it's just unbelievable. So that's been a huge transition in the marketplace, and from that, that's created communities, and probably equally important is it created a whole new genre, which is competitive gaming or esports. And so, all those things are all just, coming out of the market in the last 10 or 15 years because of new formats and immersive play, and then being able to compete against others for prizes.
And your focus also changed to these types of games.
Yeah, very much so. I'm, primarily, if you talk about my projects, I do a lot of mobile games because it's kind of like easy to get into the market. You can read your audience and you can understand it well. But equally important is that I can't say specifically what I'm doing, but I'm building a new piece of intellectual property right now that could be one of the top 10 pieces of entertainment for the next 20 years. And so to think about that just from a vision point of view, and then what kind of resources you need is just an amazing type of a project versus a click 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 mobile type of a game. So today, uniquely and wonderfully from my point of view, I'm in just about every single major area of the game business with some of the best intellectual property available to be able to work with in those areas.
What are your main projects today?
Well, the most recent, the multi-pronged product was that I did NASCAR Heat, which was a successful product for the NASCAR sports business. And that was unique from a point of view that we took NASCAR Heat and we did it on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, iOS, and Android. And so that was successful across all the different five markets. And then most recently I've been doing a lot of work in trivia. So I've got a trivia game that I'm pretty excited about that's coming into the marketplace in the next 3 or 4 months.
These projects are active now, and you're working on them.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Can you describe this process? For example, some company comes to you, they want to promote their game or they want to launch it. So, can you take one example and just put it in steps?
Yeah, to me, if somebody reaches out to me, the first question is that where are you at in the process, and then what are your goals? And so once you establish that, it's like, okay, what do we need to do so that we can make the product market ready? And then from that point of view, getting it to iOS and Android is not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is to be able to find an audience. So I work a lot with the companies to be able to try to find a unique set of game participants that we would be able to target so that we can see if we can get them to come into the game initially. And if they start to like it, then hopefully, additional advertising and word of mouth will let it start to scale and to grow.
Did you work with Web3, crypto, or NFT games? Did you have experience with such new technologies?
Yep. Yes, very much so. I worked with an Amon Jordan company, and we had a game called Game Draw, where it was a technology, and we actually sold that to Unity. So that was a really good basic technology that we were able to provide, and now the entire community is able to use. But I also have worked a lot in NFT games, primarily using them for prizes in games, but have a good understanding of what that is. And with Web3 games, we're just beginning to explore that as a possible new genre and a new
Mm-hmm.
format right
What do you think is going to be the next big change in the gaming industry? Is it Web3, NFT, or something another? What will be with the gaming industry in 10, 20 years? Of course, they will be all fun, but what do you expect to be changed?
I think that mixed reality will be the big leap forward, and that's because of the immersive experience. So I think augmented reality and virtual reality that come together into a mixed reality type of a component will be really where there will be a dynamic growth opportunity once again. Because I think what it'll do is it'll change the imagination as it relates to how you truly play games and how you get involved in them.
Even in education, there are a lot of game techniques which are involved to make people interesting in the sciences. For example, just tomorrow I am going to take an interview from a company which develops experiments for children, chemical, physical, mathematical, and other different types. And they use augmented reality phones, and they send experiment sets to families every month to educate their children with such interesting types of education and games. So if we talk about future, in which maybe spheres games will be involved. For example, education is one. Maybe you see another spheres of life which will be using games.
Yeah, I have some experience in STEM, and understand education type games. And for me, here again, I'm not specifically into educational type products because my mantra is it's all about the fun, and a lot of times there's a conflict between the educational part and the entertainment part. And so I really try to stay in my lane from a point of view of understanding that the entertainment part is where my expertise is. Although I do respect the fact that games can be a differentiator and a way to be able to make education more interactive with the students.
If we talk about creating a new game, for example, for mobile phones, what is minimum money needed for launch new game, and how much money is needed to test it to understand will it be profitable or not.
So, talking specifically about like a mobile game, that was an original game, I would say that for the amount of money to do it properly between the idea and getting to test is probably going to be four or $500,000. And I would say then from test to launch, it's going to be another probably 500 to $750,000. And then at launch, you need to have money to be able to find an audience. So it's takes a substantial amount of money to be able to have a product that has a chance to be able to be successful in the marketplace. And Max, the type of game I'm talking about is a game that would have monetization hooks within it. A lot of times people make games because they're great, and at the end, it's like, how are you going to make money? And they go, oh, shoot, I didn't put that in. And what I'm talking about is games that would be at the beginning thought through as it relates to what the consumer experience is and where those breaks would be so that you could put ads in.
I suppose that today it is almost not possible to make money from advertising inside of games, and it is better to involve some, I don't know, things which people buy to make the experience better.
Well, the no, making money from the game is central. So that's why advertising is critical. And to me, when it comes down to the gameplay, it's who can you get to come play the game. So what kind of what kind of advertisers would be good for that, and then how long can you keep that game player in there to be able to see those ads. And the way I look at it, Max, is that every time you look at an ad, there's 2 cents worth of revenue from my point of view. So I need a lot of players to stay a long time to be able to make it viable. And so then you're talking about, you need a sustained audience of what, 250,000 to 500,000 people just to start. And to be able to make it a meaningful business, you better have an audience of 1.5 million to 2 million players. So there's a lot of challenges in that alone to be able to get you to the point that now you're making money and, significant money on your games.
Is there a way to evaluate the game cheaper than $1 million, for example? I don't know. Is there some uh, lean startup process to to understand will this game work out or not?
Yeah, no, I think that there definitely is, and it depends on what you can do and what you're trying to accomplish. When the iPhone first came out, I got together with three different developers, and what we were doing is we were developing games that cost $5,000 each, and we were putting them out into the market. And at that time, the model was that it was 99 cents for a download. So it was like, okay, geez, I
Mhm.
can make these games. They're really fun. They're really great. And, all people have to do is pay 99 cents for them, and it'll turn out to be wonderful. Each of those games had a development cost of about $5,000, and that was time put in and being able to hang it and all that kind of stuff. One game made almost $400. One game made less than $100, and one game made less than $30.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was cheap. We got to the marketplace really cheap and everything, but the result was really disastrous. So then you have to say, okay, what was wrong? Well, the model was wrong. What can you throw advertising in? Now all of a sudden you have to go back and you have to start reprogramming it. You start putting those hooks in. You got to go find an ad company that will insert their technology into your product. And now instead of a $5,000 game, you've got a $40,000 game for basically the same thing. And you go out and you're now hoping for an audience, and it's still a challenge. So I do agree that a lot of times those first entry type games are really good because they give you feedback, but I just don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of money made on really cheap games that are put into them.
My last question is, what would you do in the gaming market if you were starting from scratch now? And it was not like consultant or license business, but you started your own game.
Yeah, I think that now is a better time than ever to join the game industry. It's just explosive growth all over the place. And what I would suggest to new game innovators is to think outside of the box. We're always looking for new ways to play and new ways to have fun. And so, anybody can do a Bejeweled game and anybody can do a Candy Crush game. But what's different and unique that you're bringing to the marketplace that could capture the imagination of the game players across the world? So, I would say that go for it, because I think the game business is really good. And then what I would do is to take short iterations, do something fairly quickly, get feedback from it, find out what that feedback is, and then go forward again and learn and grow as you go. And that'll help you a ton as it relates to when you're really ready for prime time. You've got all of the analysis and all the feedback in the marketplace that helps make you a more successful game when you get there.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I wish you luck and success with your new games projects and with your book. When will it be published?
My goal right now is to publish it in August of next year.
Cool.
So, and then the name of the book is The Golden Era of Games, My 50 Years in the Game Industry.
Wow.
And it really shares a lot of wonderful stories as it relates to where the game industry came from. But what's been interesting, Max, is that as great as the games have been that I've been a part of, what really matters is the people. And the game industry has such wonderful, wonderful people. We're very creative, we're very innovative, we really try hard, and we really care about each other. And to me, out of all my years in the game industry, that's the most profound thing that I got out of it, was these great friendships that I have.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Max Pog builds a startup studio.